Welcome to Engineering Influence podcast from the American Council of Engineering Companies. We're here from our 2025 fall conference in now sunny San Diego. Cloud cover is burned off, and we are talking the state of the economy in engineering. And to do that, I'm very pleased to be joined by John Gray with Rockport Analytics. He is one of the authors of our newest economic forecast and really just the state of the engineering industry right now. John, thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me. I'll do my best to keep the sunshine.
I know, right?
Not roll the clouds in. We're talking about economic forecast.
I know, right? It's been interesting, to say the least. We've had a bunch of work done with the ACEC Research Institute on sentiment surveys, taking a snapshot in time. And we've been doing that on a quarterly basis. We're starting to do mid-quarter lightning polls. And now we've had those results, but now we have the greater picture of where the industry is and what people are thinking about 5 years down the line, right? So where are we?
Big question.
Yeah,
right? Where are we? Yeah. So this is the time of year that we always do that rehash and really look backward a year and see kind of how we performed as an industry. As you mentioned, we're doing the sentiment studies a little bit more frequently. And what we saw, we're looking back at 2024, which is obviously the last full calendar year that we have data available for. And the industry's continuing to perform very well. $459 billion in the U.S. was generated in revenue collectively amongst engineering and design services firms. That was up 5.3%. over the previous year. So another strong year.
Yeah.
We are seeing that growth start to moderate a little bit. You know, we've got some headwinds that I'm sure we'll talk about. And some of those headwinds have started to set in last year. But by and large, just another really strong year. This is 4 years consecutive of growth. We've seen about 35% growth since the lows that we saw in 2020 at those COVID bottoms. And so it's been really a tremendous period for the industry in general.
So we're seeing growth in the amount of industry revenue. We're seeing the growth in the amount of contribution to GDP. We're seeing employment growth as well, right? The numbers there are going positive. Of course, there are headwinds there, and we will talk about those. And even the number of engineering establishments themselves. I mean, it seems like, there has been a positive growth trend. But looking at some of those headwinds, in the sentiment studies that we've done, there's always been a good high level of optimism from the feeling of my firm's doing pretty well personally. And then also general optimism on the macroeconomy. However, we have noticed a little bit of softening, right? And let's talk about that a little bit, especially the big guys. Taxes, tariffs, to an extent, workforce, right? So let's start with taxes. IIJA, that is now old history. We're looking at a surface for authorization. How have tax policies impacted the industry?
Yeah, I mean, that's been one really favorable area, right? Yeah. We've seen certainly tailwinds through the tax plan that passed earlier this year. I think that was, very business friendly, and it was friendly to engineering and design services businesses. And so I think that certainly from a top line revenue standpoint has been a tailwind. Yeah. And you mentioned IIJA. Yes, we're pretty far down the line now, almost 5 years, I think, since that bill was signed. And we were expecting a lot of this funding to hit the marketplace.
But that's the question, right? It's like you had the sugar high of passage, but it's a question of getting money out the door. Yeah. And how is that, how does that impact, how really firms are seeing themselves, and then also just the general impact on our the work done to improve the economy or plug back into it?
Yeah, I think, on the negative side of the ledger, certainly the rollout has been fairly slow. So that means we don't have infrastructure built to the degree we would like it to at this point. If you want to look at, that glass being half full, if you will, we still have years of additional stimulus that are coming down the line, right? And so And frankly, a lot of these sort of longer tail projects, we talk about the update of the energy grid. I mean, that's where, we'll talk about AI, obviously a big topic.
Yeah.
And we're going to need the energy to support that. And a lot of those IIJA funds that are going to go into those projects to update the grid, they're going to take, decade or longer. And so, yes, we do need this infrastructure now, but it's also a good thing that, we're going to continue to see in terms of performance in firms, these funds roll out. Because frankly, if all of these funds were hitting the market right now, we'll talk about staffing. I just don't think the industry really has the capacity to be able to grow and use them adequately.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's before we talk about workforce, let's talk about backlog. How are firms looking at backlog right now? How is that impacting the industry? And with all this work kind of, coming out in stages, the money kind of flowing into the projects, how is that mix going?
Yeah. And backlog, I know, is something that the Research Institute is measuring on a quarterly basis in sentiment. And, I think we started to see, smaller levels of backlog for a brief period of time.
Yeah.
And then that's crept back up. And so we're again seeing that backlog pretty strong. We are starting to see some headwinds that is impacting demand and may start to impact that backlog. But as of right now, it remains very strong.
Let's talk about tariffs real quick. I mean, that's looking at the numbers from 2024, it wasn't completely baked in, right?
Yeah.
Just putting on your normal economist hat, right? What do you think the impact of tariffs have been? I mean, I'm hearing everything from, there's still great uncertainty. Yes, there's going to be an issue, especially when it comes to, input costs on project completion and what the, contractors are actually buying and using, how that is going to impact the engineering sector. But then also that built-in resilience over time of firm leaders realizing that just because there's a tariff announced doesn't mean it's actually going to take place. Where do you think this is all leaning right now? Is it taco? Is it not?
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's a really tough question to answer, right? And so that's kind of where all of us are thinking through. Kind of the economic impact of this, right? And so in 2024, as you mentioned, Trump got voted into office. I think we all looked around and said, there's a number of things that are likely to happen. We're probably going to have less regulation. We're probably going to have lower taxes. And there's this whole tariff thing. And where's it really going to go? And I don't think we really thought that it was going to elevate to the degree. I don't think anybody did of the announcements that we saw on so-called Liberation Day with the big boards coming out. And everyone kind of went, oh, wow. And so clearly since then, we've seen rollback and a lot of this is clearly sort of negotiation tactics. But at the end of the day, trying to ask somebody what, the tariff rate is going to be on aluminum, steel, on general goods and services across all these different economies that we trade with, it's really tough to handicap. So I think, and that's what's having a bit of an impact when we think about uncertainty is, businesses have a hard time planning. And no matter what, we're going to see some costs go up. You mentioned input costs. I think we already have, interest rates that are restrictive and are slowing construction in certain segments. And now with the cost of building materials going up again, there are going to be more project delays and things are going to be put off. Now, some of that might get made up when we get out and there's a little bit more clarity and we've got pent-up demand and we see that. But until we really know what all of that's going to look like and how things are going to shake out, it's very difficult to handicap.
Yeah, it's interesting to see exactly how the industry is going to react just psychologically, because 99% of this to a point psychological, so you just don't know what's going to happen until it does happen. But it's going to be interesting to see exactly how, built in a lot of the anticipation of tariff announcements are going to be moving forward in 2025. When you do your next assessment, it's going to be how volatile was that to industry performance.
Yeah, I mean, look, let's hope this time next year we have a lot more clarity and we can look back and say, okay, this was the disruption, but here's here's what we know moving forward. I think just having that footing will give us all the confidence, because let's face it, we're an economy that's performing very well. The industry's been performing very well. We just need a little bit of structure to be able to know how to move forward.
Absolutely. Right? Now, let's go back to that point of if all the money came out at once, we wouldn't have people to do the work. Workforce, major issue, always will be for us. What are you seeing right now on engineering workforce, the rate of employment, hiring, and what the industry really needs?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I would say it's the biggest challenge that is facing the industry now. I think obviously we talked about the uncertainty around tariffs, but just not having the people that are needed to support the demand, if it's there. We've seen it, we saw it spike really 22, 23, and we have seen, a little of the pressure ease as demand has waned a little bit. So as we've seen interest rates rise, and as I mentioned, some of these projects get stalled or slow down, that has taken a little bit of the edge off. But I think the bigger challenge, the longer term challenge, is more structural, and that's on the supply side of labor. It's really thinking about, demographics and where we are, right? We've got a lot of the workforce in the industry nearing those retirement years. And so over the next 10 years, we're going to see a lot of, in particular, senior level people leaving the workforce. And we don't have enough engineering talent to really fill in those gaps, right? And so it's a big problem that as an industry we're going to have to solve.
And that's why our focus is so much on workforce now, next gen, firm of the future. It all ties together. The immigration debate, of course, is something which wasn't in your forecast because it's brand new. The restriction on H-1Bs, I think the public debate on that, the administration says, the jobs should go to Americans first. We're not an industry that has that challenge, right? It's not a question of that. It's a question of we don't have enough people.
There aren't the people.
Right?
So we need those visas issued to be able to fill in that gap, because, I thought it was interesting watching the keynote at lunch today and thinking about, this competition that we're in, nationally, and certainly our leadership, political leadership sees that, but you've got to see the details underneath this, and I think there's a lot of unintended consequences that can come from these policies that can put us behind as a nation, right?
I mean, you're looking at an industry that's actually doing pretty well on the numbers, right? We're growing. We're generating more tax revenue. We're putting more into the GDP. We are hiring more people as much as possible. So we're an industry that's doing really well. That's essential to accomplishing most of the national policies that we're trying to put out there, right? But then you have an immigration policy that could cut us off at the knees, right? And that's something to consider.
Exactly. And it's one big key that could unlock, a lot of economic potential.
Absolutely.
In the industry.
I mean, that's going to be an issue we're advocating on. You guys provide us with the information, and then we take it to the people, the power.
You do the hard work.
So what's next up for you guys in the Institute? Because you are a powerhouse when it comes to that. Now, the nice thing is, and I was so happy when we started doing this, is that, at the earlier stages, we didn't own the data. We weren't able to say, here's the size, scale, scope of the engineering industry and its component parts, sector impact, everything like that. Now we actually have tangible data through the sentiment stuff and all that. We now have actual data that we can start doing trend analysis. So now we have this economic wealth of information. How are you looking to build on that? What comes next?
I think just building year after year, and like you said, having this longer time series of data allows us to do a lot more, allows us to understand a lot more. We can start to see, doing the sentiment analysis, what those correlations are between, a lot of the econometric forecasts that we're doing. And then obviously the work that the Institute's doing with the firm of the future, as you mentioned, is just critical for the industry right now. And I think, looking at these factors that are going to unlock that next wave of growth, whether it's the demand that for the industry, or like we're talking about labor challenges. I think workforce, thinking about AI, obviously
the whole thing. I had
top of the list. Right?
Yeah, I mean, the speaker we had at lunch, Mike Wall, futurist, really, I think I didn't even think about this. The whole idea of sovereign AI, of moving, it's so dissociated across, the entire economy. You have all these companies doing things, but countries have to make a determination. What is the national AI strategy, and how do you build out the infrastructure to support that, and how do you actually get it done? That's the whole new area that I don't think anybody's really delved into, about what do we need to do to accomplish a national sovereign AI strategy.
Yeah, I think it's going to move, as he said, very quickly, right? And so it's getting in front of it now and understanding what needs to be done to unlock that, because it is critical. And if you look at productivity in our industry, it has lagged. Right? Productivity has grown over the last 7 or 8 years in engineering and design services at about half the rate, actually less than half the rate of the national average. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, you think about the complexity of the industry. You think about how much regulation, how localized it is, and what sort of local knowledge, our firms have to be able to do the work. It's not very easy to automate a lot of those things. But as we start to work technologies, AI in particular, into workflows and tools are built, that is rapidly going to change, right? And so I think it really speaks to the upside that we have as an industry in terms of unlocking that additional productivity.
It's going to be a double-edged sword, right? Because you got the productivity question. The AI can unlock. It can automate a lot of the tasks. It takes away from the work that would otherwise be going into the actual projects. At the same time, we can't lose that essence of what we do and why it separates ourselves from a product service kind of a thing, right? It's the fighting against commoditization, but at the same time embracing technology to create more efficient workflows. How do we balance that? It's going to be an ongoing conversation.
Yeah, very true. And again, the speaker this afternoon talking to, it's really having the intellectual capital that you can add to these systems that are being built through artificial intelligence, right? So it's not commoditizing and just building something that's going to get pushed out in a box. It's having the foresight to know how to use them and structure it. And so I think the work that the Institute is doing now to really understand that and unlock that is very important work. Right?
And it's also people. I mean, he had a great example of Klarna, the financial services company that fired 7,000 people because they thought technology could do the work, realized that it couldn't, had to hire them back in.
Right? Somebody that's going to train these things.
But it's going to be people plus technology. It's going to be turning one person into 5, but still keeping that one person by giving them AI agents to kind of multiply their work. We're just always going to need people. We're going to need trained, licensed people to do the work. And we just need more of them to just grow the economy and grow the market.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
that's the key to fix everything. We're there. We got it.
Yeah, we got it. Let's get it done. All right. We've solved the world's problems. So yes, the new economic assessment and forecast is out. ACEC Research Institute has it up on their website. Definitely recommend everybody to go out and get it. And we'll be talking about it throughout the conference. This is huge. I think the people in the audience this morning really enjoyed hearing. I know they really are eager to get more information. So we're always happy to have you guys put it out there and we can use it. Yeah, always great. John Gray, Rockport Analytics. And this has been Engineering Influence podcast for the American Council of Engineering Companies. And we're going to see you next time.